Vegan Men's Lifestyle, episode number 2, interview with Leo Venus.
Welcome to the veganmenslifestyle.com podcast. Your weekly vegan motivation recharge, fitness, nutrition, women, relationships, business, travel, and more. Listen up. Your host.
Alright, so welcome to Vegan Men's Lifestyle. Today I have a special guest. I have been following this man for a long time right now, and I've seen what he's doing with his Instagram and his YouTube, and I like the direction it's going. And I met him at VegFest in Dublin a couple of months ago, and I was walking around, I saw him, said hello. About 10 minutes later I noticed there was loads of girls coming up to this guy, introducing themselves. This guy was like a rock star. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Leo Venus. Hi, Leo.
Hey, how's it going?
Great, man. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thanks for being here, dude. Look, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Now, Leo, a couple of the reasons why I asked you on here was not only are you a really good content creator on YouTube. I love the way the channel is going. It's getting very technical and detailed. But you're also a medical professional. And that's something interesting. You know, you do the fitness side of things and you're a medical professional. So I think you're pretty good guy to talk about a lot of stuff here. I think we're going to get a lot of content.
Yeah, no, it's a nice position to be in, I guess, in terms of the future, because, you know, fitness and health is a growing field and people are getting more and more interested in it, I feel. So I'm definitely excited for the future as well. And hopefully I'll be able to use some of the knowledge and influence of the degree to further the movement a bit, you know.
And what is it? What side of medicine are you actually studying? What avenue have you gone down? What's the name of the degree?
Okay, so right now I'm still doing the medical degree, which the course I'm taking is called the Graduate Entry Medicine Program here in Ireland. So what you do is you do 4 years of studies, and you have to have a degree beforehand. So I did a bachelor's degree in bioengineering or biotechnical engineering in Norway. And now I'm on my 3rd year, so I have a little over 1.5 years to go. And the last 2 years are more clinical, so we did all of our theory, all of our basic sciences in the first 2 years, all of our microbiology and pathology and all that. So that just means, you know, bacteria, viruses, disease, all that kind of stuff. And now we're in our clinical year. So next 2 years, or this year, next year, we're going to be doing a lot of clinical work in the hospital. So right now I'm in Drogheda, as I mentioned to you earlier, and every 7 weeks we change. So I started off with pediatrics, now I'm doing obstetrics and gynecology, and then throughout the year you just keep changing, so you get a bit of a flavor for all the different specialties.
Okay, and is it true? You know, you see a lot of documentaries like What the Health and Cowspiracy, and they're always saying about doctors that doctors don't actually train in nutrition. How accurate is that, or what's your experience?
Yeah, that's the important question to be asking. And I have to say, though I do plan on using my influence as a doctor, the very first thing I have to tell people, even though they seem to trust the doctor's opinion in nutrition, is actually doctors do not, on average, know anything about nutrition. In my university, we got 1 week's worth of lectures on nutrition, or even less, actually. It was less than a week. And we got taught the food pyramid from 1992, just to get a sense of how updated this nutritional course is and how seriously they take it. So you got just the basics, you know, how many calories are there per gram of protein versus fats versus alcohol, this sort of thing. Again, food pyramid from 1992, just the very basics. We go a lot more into detail, obviously, over the anatomy of the GI system, the different diseases, the pharmacology, obviously, the surgeries, the treatments, the medications. That's where the money is at. Nobody is funding schools based off of their broccoli profits. So it's not at all a focus in our education, unfortunately.
So what they've been saying in those documentaries are 100% accurate.
Very, very accurate. Yes, I've had doctors in hospitals ask me where do I get my protein, which is depressing. I said oh, you are supposed to be a doctor. Don't ask me this question. So it's very, very how do you say common in medicine or in doctors in general to know very little about nutrition, and specifically about plant-based nutrition. They usually know very little and have the same misconceptions as anybody else in society.
It is pretty interesting to me that for anyone who hasn't seen Leo, he's an absolute beast, by the way. He's like 6'3", maybe even taller.
4.
6'4", right? He's an absolute Norwegian, Brazilian Viking, right? So it's kind of amusing that a doctor would still ask you, where do you get your protein?
The funny thing is they assume I have some trick up my sleeve because there's no way a vegan can be putting on muscle,
Well, that's great. That's nice that you said that, because that leads me nicely on to the next question. There's also, there's so many things that get thrown around in this space, in this community. And one of those things is that vegan dudes specifically, struggle with testosterone levels. What's your opinion on that? I mean, generally, I know it's like there's a lot of variables with that. With you can be an unhealthy meat eater and an unhealthy vegan, but generally, what's your stance on that?
Yeah, so my stance on this is, like most things, is you hear a lot of stuff when you're talking to people in general, but very little of these rumors, if you will, have any truth to them. Most of the things you hear are just popular belief, and when you look at the science, which I have, fortunately I have good access to, there is no evidence for vegans having lower testosterone than omnivores, and I've checked personally. My own testosterone levels were almost at the higher limit of normal. And obviously, nutrition is not the only thing as well that will affect testosterone. There are other things, there are genetic factors, there's sleep, there's stress levels, there's a lot of other things that can do it as well. But in general, I would say absolutely there's no evidence to suggest that vegans are in any way inferior in terms of testosterone levels. And if anything, as you age at least, it has been shown that vegans tend to drop testosterone levels slower than the average male. Now, I don't know if that's just because vegans tend to be healthier in general as they age, or if that's something to do with the diet. But like I said, there's no worry in my mind that vegans can't get enough testosterone.
Sure. And what can a guy do to ensure that has the best levels of testosterone? I mean, do you recommend any supplements to guys, or do you take any supplements yourself or anything else?
For the most part, I would say no. I don't take anything like that. I do take the only supplements I take are vitamin D in the winter. Sometimes I take a vitamin B12 supplement, maybe once or twice a week. And then sometimes I will take a protein powder, and creatine I've taken a few times as well. But that is not really related to testosterone. It's more just in terms of bodybuilding or putting on strength and muscle. In terms of testosterone, I would say there are a few things that have been shown to increase it. So getting enough sleep is very important. And actually, training, for men to train does help your testosterone, specifically actually resistance training. So doing weights can actually increase your testosterone levels, compared to someone who never does any resistance training. And otherwise, you want to get your nutrition on point. So zinc is important. So a lot of vegetables, nuts, seeds, and stuff like that have plenty of zinc. But yeah, that's the basic gist of it.
Okay, so it's not a worry in your mind that the vegan diet causes low testosterone. It's not even you don't even accept it as a worry.
No, absolutely not.
That's great. Okay, and you mentioned vitamin D there. I mean, obviously living in Ireland, that's a problem. We don't all live in California. I was reading into a study last night that in order for vitamin D to be absorbed properly, you have to take vitamin K1, I believe they said. Did you ever hear anything about that? Or the absorption?
No, I have to be honest and say no. I have never read up on specific absorbing vitamin D with K1. I've never heard of that. No.
Okay, yeah, I'm a bit hesitant to start taking it just in case. There's so much conflicting information out there, man. It's crazy. That's why I wanted to set up the podcast, get to the bottom and stuff. All these vegan terms that are thrown out there. It's very hard to wade through the dirt and get to the good stuff, and figure out what's true and what's not. So next question, Leo. Soy, do you take it? Do you take tofu, for example? What's your stance on that?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of soy products in terms of just in my own diet. I don't eat it as often as my brother, for example, John. He eats a lot of tofu and a lot of tempeh, seitan, all that kind of stuff. But I do eat tofu every now and then, maybe, on average once a week or so. In terms of the health aspect, it's definitely not anything to worry about. You have a lot of studies have actually been done on tofu and soy products in general. And in terms of the biggest worry most people have is when it comes to soy is the phytoestrogens, right? So they're getting estrogenic effects on your body, and maybe how that could be deteriorating your physical or your in terms of guys especially would be muscle mass, sex drive, energy levels, all that kind of stuff. But the biggest studies done on soy, actually, the only thing they, at least from the one I read, that they were able to find was that males who ate a lot of soy had increased fertility and no negative effects on their estrogen or testosterone levels whatsoever. So, I think in terms of soy products, I wouldn't say that you have to really limit them too much. The only thing I would say is that to be careful with some of these meat replacements or soy products do have a lot of oil, and they're quite processed. So in general, from a nutritional or health perspective, I wouldn't recommend them. But pure tofu in itself, without the oil, without all the salt and all the things that can be in these pre-prepared meat replacement products, is definitely not something that you should actively avoid.
Okay. And you mentioned your brother John a few minutes ago. Now, for those of you who don't know, John Venus is also a fitness YouTuber, and he provides great information as well. Did the two of you and your brother, did you go vegan at the same time, or who's older, who's younger, who's who?
Yeah. Funny, I always get asked that. A lot of people actually think I'm older, but John is the older. He is 3 years older.
3 years old.
And I actually went vegan first, so I went vegan just under 5 years ago now. And it took a couple of years for me to get him on board. He was actually, the funny thing is, John has done so much for the vegan movement at the moment. And, he's a lot bigger, stronger than me. He's a complete beast, as you said earlier. And he's done so much for the movement, and I'm really proud of my brother. But the funny thing is that when I first went vegan almost 5 years ago, he was the one in my closest circle of family who was the most opposed. He was the most against veganism in the beginning. Yeah. So it's just funny how things turn out, that sometimes the guy who's the most against it turns out to be someone who does so much, has such a great impact on the movement later.
I know, I understand. Yeah, he's really huge, isn't he? But I mean, you said he's bigger than you. I haven't seen John in the flesh, but if he's bigger than you, I mean, what height? He must be about 7
I would
feet
say
tall, is
he's bigger in terms of his muscles. I would say in terms of, I mean, size in general, I would say we're pretty similar because I'm quite a bit taller. We usually weigh about the same, even though I'm 194 centimeters and he is, I believe, 185. So I'm 9 centimeters taller, but he still weighs about the same as me. So he's got a lot of muscle on him.
The Venus monsters, huh? When you first went vegan, did you lose a bit of weight?
To be honest, no, I was gaining weight. The heaviest I've ever been was I was 98 kilos, and I was trying to get into this whole bulking mentality where you just tell yourself eat as much as you can, and you get into this delusional state in your mind that you think that every pound or every kilogram you put on is pure muscle. Obviously, that is not the case. So. Yeah, no, I was vegan, and I was almost 100 kilos. And when I went vegan almost 5 years ago, I think, if I remember correctly, I only weighed around 84 kilos, and now I have quite a lean body fat. I'm now weighing 94 kilos. So I've put on quite a lot of weight since going vegan. And if you look at pictures, you can definitely tell that I put on a lot of muscle, and in terms of in the gym, I can also very easily see that I'm lifting a lot heavier weights. I've definitely gotten a lot stronger in the gym as well.
Okay, that's nice. That leads me into another question that I had. So I want to give guys some tips about going to the gym that maybe you can share with us. So right now, what I'm doing, and I've just started this a couple of weeks ago, is progressive overload. So I'm doing 3 days a week, and every session my aim is to get stronger on the core lifts, right? So what kind of angle are you going at this from? Is that what you do, or do you kind of just go in and get as many reps in as possible? What do you recommend to guys who let's just want to build muscle mass, right, and look toned? And everyone can say that no, I don't want to do that, but at the end of the day, it feels good to look good, and we might as well throw out some information out there,
Yeah, no, that's an interesting topic. I was actually planning on making a video on it, so I will make a video on it, but I'll tell you pretty much exactly what I'm thinking of saying in the video. So,
okay, great.
In the beginning, when I started getting more serious into lifting, I came at it from a very scientific view. Since I am kind of a scientist, I was recording all my lifts, exactly how much I was lifting, how many reps on every single exercise. And as you said, I'll try to go about it in a very logical fashion. Every week I try to increase my lifts by maybe 2.5 pounds every week, and just try to keep going up.
That's exactly what I'm aiming for right now. So I hope your next sentence is gonna be, that's a load of BS.
What I'm gonna say is that for me that was not the best approach. To be honest with you, I'll give you the reasons as well. So what ended up happening is I would put so much focus on obviously because I'm recording everything, I'm planning everything, I'm putting so much focus on the number of repetitions, putting so much focus on the number of weights that I'm lifting and pushing, that a lot of times that would kind of take away the focus on how my muscles feel, how my form is, all of these sort of things. And as well, you're not varying your workouts that much because you have a kind of a set routine that you're recording, and it becomes very monotone. Obviously, there is good logic behind increasing the weights, and you want to increase your weights. But what worked a lot better for me was once I started getting away from that mentality of having to religiously record every single step of the way, and having to make sure that every week I'm hitting one more rep or a bit higher weights. Is I actually, and this is my number one tip for beginners actually, is to forget about the reps that you're doing. So you're trying not to go into an exercise thinking, I will do 8 repetitions. Because what ends up happening is you do 8 repetitions and you stop. Drop the weights, there you go, I reached my goal. Even if you could have done 10 or you could have done 12, you just leave your weights and that's it. You know what? When in reality, what you really want to do is you want to push your muscles as far as you can every single time. So what I ended up doing is I ended up taking the mentality of going to failure. So your muscles can't do another rep. So regardless of what you think you're doing, you just go until you can't do another rep. And you aim for hitting that somewhere between 6 and 12 reps. That's what I did anyways. And if you're doing less than 6, then maybe do a bit lighter on the next set. If you're doing more than 12, maybe go a bit heavier. But the basic gist of it is don't let your mind cap you or limit you. Go until you fail. That was the number one tip. And the other thing that I also like to give as advice is number 2 would be to focus on form, because again, when I was so focused on lifting the right amount of weight and improving every single week, I was so focused on just succeeding rather than feeling the muscles burn, that a lot of times I'd actually come into the gym one time. I remember back in the day when I walked into the gym and I see this huge guy sitting doing curls, and he was doing maybe 10 kilos on each hand. And I was, quite weak and skinny back then. I walked out, sitting next to him doing like 15 on each hand, thinking, look at this guy. He must be taking steroids or something. His arms are huge, but I'm doing a lot more weights than him. Or like, this is so weird. His muscles are made of water, But what I didn't realize back in the time with my inexperienced past self is that he was doing the movements very slowly, very controlled. He would do the negative extremely slowly and controlled. And there's a lot of things that you can do. There's a lot of extra benefits and effect that you can get out of your workouts if you focus on doing the form and making it hard for yourself. Not just focusing on doing as much weight as possible, but making it hard for yourself, doing the movement slowly, controlled. And that to me also was one of the biggest changes that I made maybe 2 or 3 years ago to my workouts, where I'll do every single negative, and every exercise I do the negative slowly. And also, again, focusing on really making that muscle you're trying to work burn. So that's a mind-muscle connection a lot of people talk about now. I don't have a scientific explanation for this, but for me, in my personal experience, it definitely does seem to help, where when you actually focus on the muscle you're trying to work, rather than using any other accessory muscles that you could help get those weights up. So that was number 2. So number 1 is forget about the number, go till failure. Number 2, focus on form. And then number 3, for me, was to train legs more often, because a lot of guys, you just want to focus on your biceps and your chest, and you completely neglect your legs. And I used to play football or soccer, so I used to think to myself, I use my legs enough. There's no point in me really putting that much effort into training legs. But the fact is, when you train your legs, you're actually increasing the gains that you're going to get in your upper body as well, because of the surge of testosterone and growth hormone that you get after lifting and doing resistance training on your legs. And now again, I'm not 100% sure if they know exactly why this is, but my theory so far is that because your leg muscles and your lower body muscles are so much bigger, so much stronger. Obviously, when you work them out, you get just because of the fact that they're so much bigger and stronger, you get a bigger surge of growth hormone and testosterone. So even if your main goal is to put on upper body strength or put on muscle mass in your upper body, it will actually benefit you to work on your legs. Okay. So those would be my three main things.
Right, and when you can't get to the gym, and let's say I see from your Instagram you're doing like calisthenics lately, is that also until failure type of thing, or is that more concentrated? So it's a bit harder with calisthenics. It's a bit harder to go to failure, but I try to aim for that. And with gym or lifting weights, it's very easy. You just pick the right weight and you go to failure. With calisthenics, it's not that easy. You have to, find different techniques, different body positions that are harder. And even then, sometimes you can't find the exact exercise where you'll fail between 6 and 12 reps. So in calisthenics, I think it becomes even more important. My second tip about form and trying to make it harder for yourself. So, if you can do, yesterday, for example, I did a home workout here, and I thought to myself, well, for chest, I'll do push-ups, but, I can usually, if I try to do push-ups, I can probably do more than 50 push-ups in one go, so that's going to be a lot of reps. Yeah. But what I ended up doing is I did a few different exercises that were slower and harder, and then as I went to normal push-ups, I just put my feet up a little bit so it's a bit inclined,
So that already makes it a little bit harder. And then I would do the movements extremely slow. So I did push up just with a bit of a decline. So I was failing around 8 reps, even though usually I could do so many more push-ups. So I really do mean it when I say that going slow and really focusing on just using that muscle you're trying to train, rather than doing it as many reps as you can, doing it fast, but really trying to make it hard for yourself can have a huge effect on your workouts.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. Thanks for those tips. There you have it, guys. You mentioned earlier on about when you told your brother he was like he was the most closed off to it, and I guess he made the most fun of it. He was making fun of you and stuff like that. For guys who are making a transition now, for listeners, how would you advise them to approach, I don't know, telling their families and stuff like that? It's, for me, it's a weekly battle. There's a new situation every week. It's like work colleagues, buddies, family. There's something new being thrown at you every week. How do you deal with it, basically, and how did you deal with it at the beginning, and any mistakes that if you could do it differently now, how would you do it? How would you approach telling people and stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, which I think should be talked about a lot, especially for new vegans, because it's like any other process. In the beginning, you're new to this, you don't really know how to effectively communicate your beliefs or get people to think about it in an open way. So it's definitely been a journey for me in the beginning. I made a lot of mistakes. I'm definitely a lot more comfortable talking to anybody about veganism nowadays as compared to 5 years ago. But yeah, I think the most important thing, I think, is to accept that you're going from an objective point of view. You're doing it because you believe it's right, and kind of distance yourself a little bit from the idea of being vegan as being you, because a lot of people, when they go vegan, they feel attacked constantly, because anytime somebody says anything negative about veganism, they'll instantly think they're attacking them personally. And then it becomes extremely hard for you to have an objective argument without getting too fiery and emotional, right? So I would say, first off, just distance yourself a little bit from it, and let people come from from a curiosity perspective, instead of, obviously, one of the first things you'll want to do when you go vegan is to tell your family and your closest friends, because it's this amazing thing I found, like everybody, like, come join,
Yeah, right.
But sometimes that eagerness can actually be counterproductive.
Yeah, you can shoot yourself in the foot with that, because then the questions come, and the preconceived notions, and you're not really ready to handle the questions.
Exactly.
I had this issue, I was so, when you watch all these documentaries, you get excited. You get excited because you can't deny it. You can't deny the truth in it, and you want people to know, and you get excited, and you tell your family, and then you're not really ready for the questions coming back at you. I mean,
exactly, and it's not only just the being preparedness, but also just the fact that a lot of people take their diet very personally, and you coming at them straight up and saying that you think they're all wrong can press a lot of wrong buttons very quickly and get people very annoyed and very defensive. So it's all these things, these social cues that you pick up over the years that, in the beginning I didn't really know how to pick up properly, and I've definitely offended quite a few people by being overly eager and sharing my opinion very openly, which I believe, it's not a bad thing in itself. You should share your opinion, and you should share how you believe or what you believe in openly, and you shouldn't hide what you think. But sometimes it's better to just slow it down a bit and keep some of it for next time, and let people think over it, and make sure you let them know that you're not coming from a judgmental perspective, because most vegans weren't born vegan. Most vegans used to eat meat, used to eat fish, eggs, milk, dairy, whatever. And there would be, for example, for me, it would be hypocritical to go around saying that every single person who eats meat is a bad person.
Yeah.
Because, I myself, my family, most vegans would be bad people because they used to eat meat. So what I like to do is I like to tell people, listen, I understand. I used to think exactly the same way as you. I'm actually exactly, my values are probably very similar to yours. We're very similar people. And the reason I eat differently is not because I'm a different type of person. I'm not this different sect of humans, these vegan humans were a different group of people. I'm just someone who has looked and looked at and obtained a different perspective on something that affects us in our everyday life. And because of those new views, those new facts that I didn't know of before, that I started appreciating, I've started to change my behavior and change my way of living according to my same values that I used to have before I was vegan, but it's just the new information.
That's a huge point what you said there about that you used to be a meat eater, right? And so did I. I mean, you know what Ireland is like. It's pints of milk for dinner, and breakfast is meat, lunch is meat, dinner is meat. Okay, supper might not always be meat, but it's meat heavy. And nobody was a bad person when they ate meat. Everybody was still fundamentally a good person. I was a good person. You were a good person. And that's why it's such a touchy subject. And that's why I think there's so many arguments online and stuff like that. And people get so defensive. So it's really cool that you said that right now, and that's part of the reason why I wanted you on the podcast, was because you kind of come at this from a different angle than 90% of the movement online and stuff like that, I really like where the movement has got right now. It's a lot of people have done a lot of work for it, but I kind of think they're doing it in a real extreme kind of way that's causing people a little bit of personal conflicts, when you, as you said, when you're calling people out, when you're kind of conflicting with their beliefs and you're personally attacking them, nothing's really going to change. So it's really cool the way you're kind of going at this. You're going at that from a person to person type of way,
Yeah, no, it's just, in my personal experience, it seems to be the most effective. I'm sure some people, we have all sorts of different people in the world, and I'm sure some people need to hear it straight up, no, nothing held back. This is how it is. This is what you're doing. You are wrong. Some people may be able to handle that, and that's why I think that in the end of the day, all sorts of activism is good, just because, we need all types of activism to reach all types of people. But for the majority of people, I would say that being a little bit less direct and less personal about it can give you much better results in terms of getting them to actually consider going vegan themselves, rather than making them your enemy and making them put all their effort into going against what you're doing instead of even considering joining you,
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes being told what to do. I mean, I always laugh at this whenever I see like Go Vegan posters or social media posts. I honestly, when I see Go Vegan, I kind of get a bit defensive. I'm like, you go vegan, don't tell me what to do. Like, it's really interesting, actually. I think they should change that to please go vegan, or go vegan, please. Like show a bit of empathy or something, it always makes me giggle.
Making it to a question somehow, right? Because that's another thing I think works a lot is instead of telling people, is asking people. Ask them how much they know, ask them what they think about certain things. And a lot of times if you come from a, more of a curiosity perspective and get people thinking about the issues that you were thinking about back when you were considering going vegan, lets people almost come up with these ideas by themselves, and then it becomes, their own idea rather than somebody else telling them what to do,
So you would say to guys who were thinking about, let's say, trying it, not to kind of hold off a little bit, don't try and shove it down their family's throats straight away. Let them kind of come to him more than he goes to them, yeah?
Yeah, it's like if they start asking you and they actively show curiosity on the subject, then you're obviously free to go all out and then tell them everything that you're doing and explain to them why you do things. But yeah, letting people come, the most of the people I've had randomly go vegan have actually been surprises to me. They just come and ask me about it, and then I talk to them, and maybe a couple of weeks later they come ask me some other things, and slowly but surely they just kind of made put the pieces together in their own minds, and just one day they'll be like, "Hey, Leo, I've been on a plant-based diet for 3 months now." I'll be like, "Whoa, that's amazing! Where did that come from?" So it's I would definitely say just come at it more from open, be like, yeah, this is what I do. It works well for me. It also works out for a lot of people I know. Works out for a lot of other people out there, even though we're still a small portion of the population. There's a lot of success in the small amount of people who are doing it, and to let them know if you're interested in trying it. I'm happy to help. You can send me an email or ask me like on social media or whatever, or if you know them personally, you can come talk to me anytime. And that way you leave things free. They have the freedom of choice. But I think most of the time just shoving things down people's throat is definitely not the most effective.
Agreed. How big do you see? How mainstream do you see it getting? I mean, it's personally, I've seen it change a lot in the last 5 years. It's really, really huge. I don't know if that's because I'm spending more time on social media or not, but how big do you see it getting, or where do you see this leading to? Like,
yeah, no, I just have to say I'm a very optimistic person, and I get laughed at a lot by some of my non-vegan friends for this, because a lot of people think it's quite outrageous. But I have the opinion that the future is completely vegan. People, as people get more educated on the matters concerning why people go vegan, all the issues surrounding veganism, as people become more comfortable, as it becomes more normal, and as society as a whole becomes more and more civilized, I think for sure the future will be completely vegan. Now the question for me is just a question of time.
yeah, okay.
So, will it be in my lifetime? That's seems unlikely at the moment, but like I said, I'm an optimist. I like to think that it's still possible. But then you have some people who just think that sounds like the most, extreme view, that the whole world will be vegan. But that's my personal belief. And in the future, it's just a question of time. But at least, 99% of people will be vegan.
I think, I can see it happening, but there's just a lot of variables to take into consideration. I think it's going to take a lot of time for all the false information about like blood types. Different people with different blood types need to eat meat. What's your view on that? Is that
yes? So my view on that is it's just one of those kind of like fads, because in terms of science, admittedly I haven't spent hours and hours looking for studies, but I have actually tried to find some stuff on it, and I can't find any good science on anyone needing a different type of diet based on their blood group. So I don't think there is any evidence for that. So I think it's just another one of those fads, to be honest.
Okay, I think when all the misconceptions such as that get proven, or who knows, maybe some of them will actually turn out true. But when the science shows 100%, then of course there'll be no stopping it. I think I'm an optimistic guy as well. I just think that that's going to take a long time, because there's so many places on planet Earth that are still remote, and depend on livestock to get them through winter and stuff like that. There's a reason why humans are so successful and we spread across the globe, is because, and to be fair, we have used animals to help us get so successful, to survive harsh winters and traveling long distances and stuff like that. So there is that to take into consideration. But I'd agree with you. I'm optimistic, and I think any developed countries will certainly kind of look to it, at least look to it and the benefits of it, at least, you know.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that you mentioned there about other countries as well, which is kind of frustrating at the moment because in most developed countries, veganism is growing. If you look at the trend worldwide, we are going in the wrong direction. Veganism is going down because you have countries such as India where veganism, not for the sake of being veganism, just for the sake of that was the normal diet. Traditionally was mostly plant-based. That was big, and nowadays the diet is changing. So you have this huge mass of people going to a more carnivorous diet, and it's just frustrating to see. Sometimes you'd wish you could just get some of these countries to skip this part of development, but in most cases it seems that most people have to go through the same mistakes before getting to that stage, so it seems like it's gonna get worse before it gets better still, which is sad because when you look at how much damage we've done to the environment and to how many animals are needlessly killed throughout the world today, it seems like even though it is growing in Europe and it is growing in North America, it's worldwide. The trend is, like I said, still going the wrong direction.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, and I've read all the stats on that there's more and more animals actually being killed because of China and India and stuff like that, and their growing economies. But the difference is this time is that they are connected worldwide with the internet as well. So maybe it will be a little bit short-lived because maybe by the time they're hearing about it, we'll already be like, oh no, forget that, like just forget meat and all that BS, Maybe then they'll just immediately start following us. It's really, we're entering into really interesting times, that's for sure. Like,
you weren't kidding about the optimist in you. That's I see a true optimist there. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, look, if my family are still shocked that I don't eat meat. I mean, I was a meat eater, man. I was like, and if I can change, like it's this guy from the south of Ireland. If I can do it, like it's like I would be optimistic that lots of other people would do it. I just think one other maybe a little bit of advice that I might ask of you for our listeners. There's a lot of, you mentioned the animal stuff, and there's a lot of negativity with this. If you decide to go down this route, you're going to be more than likely doing it alone, right? And this is what I kind of want to get into a bit. It's like, how did you deal with the, I guess, negativity of all this stuff that's going on and feeling like you were kind of doing it alone? Is there any advice you give to guys that are kind of on this route at the moment, and maybe it's causing them some mental conflict about going vegan or not going vegan, because it is hard. What would you say? How would you say to stay positive and optimistic and don't let it get to you, and try not to be too attached to the outcome of whether their family is vegan or whether their girlfriend is vegan or not, What would you say?
It's a hard question. I mean, to be honest, it is by far the hardest thing about going vegan is how your family and your closest friends will take it. But, in the end of the day, I think you just have to realize that you have to, you have to be true to yourself. If you think the right thing to do is to go vegan, then, you're not going to be happy with yourself if you're going against your own true values just to fit in with your family and your friends. So, that is a lot of people, I think, overestimate how important it is to fit in exactly. We've been socially conditioned, I think, to really try our best to fit in so many ways. But in terms of anxiety and things, I was quite a stubborn guy. So I think I handled it okay. But even I had a few moments where I would get a little bit anxious about going to new schools or having presentations about and just a lot of it, as you said, disconnecting yourself a bit from the outcome, I think would be very, very helpful, because a lot of times you think, okay, now I have to further the movement, I have to support it, I have to get people to go vegan tomorrow, I have to go out there and convince everyone. But if I fail, then what? Nobody's gonna go vegan if I don't do well enough, and you start pressuring yourself. So it can there's multiple ways that you can get yourself into kind of an anxious state and a little bit stressed and nervous. But for that, I would think one of the best things is, like you mentioned, the internet. Connecting with people from everywhere around the world nowadays has become extremely easy. It's one of the beauties of social media and the internet, and as well, just being true to yourself, saying I can still love my family and my friends without them going vegan straight away. As long as you're true to yourself and you're honest with them, if they are truly good friends, or if they care about you, they'll understand why you're doing it. And yeah, I think in most cases, if this negativity and this nervousness, this anxiety is doing nothing but inhibiting that process from going along, that understanding between people. So if you think about it logically, there's absolutely no benefit to getting anxious or nervous. So I think it's just realizing that and trying your best to do whatever works for you, and trying to be honest with yourself and be honest with everyone else around you. And in the end of the day, that's the best you can do, right? And hope for the best.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I know some people, when they found out about this stuff, that they said it to their friends or family, and their friends and family didn't do anything towards it, and they've like ignored them. They've shut them out of their lives because they didn't take their advice. Which doesn't help anything. You're just making it worse. So yeah, I'd agree with you there.
It's a lot of the whole ego. The ego is going to be bad both in terms of the people receiving the information, but it can be bad for the people giving away the information. If you have built this ego around yourself, that's one of the things I've come to learn with time, is the ego is it's bad in the gym. That's a fourth advice: drop your ego in the gym. Don't compare yourself to others. So it's bad in the gym. It's bad in social circles. It's bad in promoting veganism, getting things across. You just want to free yourself of that as much as possible, because it's not helpful for anything. If you have this preconceived reputation around yourself, or this picture of how it has to be, a lot of times people avoid doing something that would be good just to avoid risking changing that ego or anything like that. So I think it's just being open to reality, accept reality as the way it is. It's going to be the way it is no matter what you do. So you might as well just try to accept it and do what you can with it, rather than have these pictures in your head of how it should be.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to have to dedicate about 5 episodes of this to just ego. Actually, ego part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Because it's such an important. I've really been experimenting with crushing the ego and stuff lately, and it's really cool. It's really, the world opens up when you forget that stuff. When you turn your back on your ego, it's the scariest thing in the world. It is so outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But
it's very exciting though. It's outside comfort zone, but that's why the fun things start happening.
Absolutely, man. We're all just on this floating rock going through space. Nobody knows what's going on. We might as well just have fun and experiment with it and see what happens when we get out of our comfort zone, And
exactly.
Much respect to guys who actually take the leap and try to go vegan, even though they know the issues they're going to face and the ridicule, and maybe they're going to feel alone. Much respect. So Leo, thanks a million for joining me today. Where can guys find out more about you and learn about what you have to say?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure. So I am on social media, as you mentioned. I do YouTube, so you can find me on YouTube as Leo Venus, just Leo Venus, like the planet. It's not anything to do with astrology. That's one of the most frequent questions I get. Is all these astrology fanatics coming to me asking me what my name is about. But no, sorry to disappoint. I'm not. The channel is not about astrology.
Except when it's a lady asking you, say, yeah, it is astrology. Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that a Brazilian name?
Actually, the funny thing is that it's not really Venus like the planet. It's a Norwegian name. It's actually John who came up with the idea where our name is actually Venus, and it includes a letter from the Norwegian alphabet that doesn't exist in the English alphabet, which is an A with a circle on top of it, which is pronounced O. So my true name is Venus, but to make it easier to find on social media and more international, I guess John had the idea of making it John Venus, and so I just tagged along and call myself Leo Venus on YouTube, and yeah, and the same on Instagram is just Leo Venus _. Apparently, some astrology freak called Leo had already grabbed Leo Venus, so I had to put on the underscore.
Okay, cool. I'm going to leave a link in the description. So that's cool, man. So you were born in Norway. Just for the guys who are interested, you were born in Norway. I believe there's a bit of Brazilian in there somewhere. Am I wrong?
Yes. So I was born in Norway, and then we moved to Brazil around 1 month later for me, where I lived 7 years. And my father is Norwegian, my mother is Brazilian, so that's why I always say, half Brazilian, half Norwegian. After living 7 years in Brazil, we've just been moving all over the place. I could go into it, but it's going to take a long time. But it includes U.S., it includes Spain. We went back to Norway for a bit, back to the United States. So in the U.S., it was both Connecticut and Texas, and then also Ireland now. So it's been a bit of a chaotic journey, but I don't foresee it's gonna get less chaotic. I think I'm gonna keep moving around quite a bit still, so we'll see.
All right, cool. Well, you're in Dublin for the moment, so maybe maybe next time I'm up in Dublin or are you going to be there in the new year?
I'll be back the 2nd of January, so New Year I'll be in Spain actually.
Okay. So look, maybe next time I'm in Dublin, if you're there, we'll get together and we'll do a workout. Maybe you can give me some tips, something like that. All right.
Man, that would be awesome. You just send me a message and we'll do it.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Leo. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Guys, thanks for joining us in the first interview for Vegan Men's Lifestyle. Couple of sound issues, we'll work on that in the future. Nothing's perfect, perfection is paralysis. Don't forget to join the Facebook group, and thanks for listening.